want to start by telling you something that might seem strange coming from a woman who was standing in Paris, France in the middle of spring just last week. The city was doing everything right. Cobblestones, croissants, that particular quality of life that makes you understand why painters have been obsessed with it for centuries. I had earned this trip, really deeply earned it in that bone-tired way that 12-hour days stacked over decades will do. And I was standing in one of the most beautiful places on earth, and I was lost. Not geographically, I had Google Maps. I was lost in the more embarrassing way. The way where you realize you have no idea who you are when nobody needs anything from you. When you have nowhere to be and nothing to manage and no one waiting on a decision. That is what brought me here today. Not Paris exactly, but what Paris was kind enough and honest enough to show me about myself. I'm retiring at the end of this school year, 30 plus years in education, the last several as a building principal, which means I've spent the better part of my adult life being the person in charge, the one with the radio, the one who fields the calls, makes the calls, absorbs the crises, and somehow still shows up for the Monday morning meeting looking like she has a plan, because she always has a plan, because that is the job. I am good at this. I want to be honest about that, and not in like a braggy way, but in the way that matters for what I'm about to tell you. I am competent, exceptionally competent, and I have been for a very long time. And somewhere along the way, without really noticing the exact moment it happened, I stopped treating competence as a skill and started treating it as a self. There's a term I've been sitting with, identity cost. The price you pay slowly, quietly over years when you let a role become the answer to the question, who are you? You don't pay that price in one dramatic moment. You pay it in increments, in the way you can only relax by planning the next thing, in the way conversations about work feel natural and conversations about yourself feel oddly foreign, like a language you used to speak but now have lost the fluency for. In the way you walk into any room and immediately start assessing what needs to be fixed or led or organized, because that is what you do and that is who you are. The identity cost isn't the job. The job might be wonderful. Mine has been wonderful. The identity cost is what you discover you've misplaced when the job is no longer there to hold you up. So, Paris. I want to tell you what I expected. Wandering, eating things with a reckless amount of butter in them, existing in a city that did not need me to be anyone's anything. I was going to simply be. What I did not account for was how strange being would feel. The first couple of days, I kept reaching for structure. I was making itineraries for my vacation. I was optimizing my leisure time like it was a school schedule, blocking out museums and arrondissements with the same energy I bring to a faculty meeting agenda. Because if I was managing something, I knew who I was. I was the woman who manages things. I was, if nothing else, useful, to myself at least. By day 3, the managing stopped working. There was nothing left to optimize. And I sat down in a cafe by myself, a small table, afternoon light, a glass of something cold, with nothing that needed doing and no one who needed me. A thought arrived that I was not prepared for. I don't know what I actually enjoy. Not in the way of having no preferences, but in the way that happens when you've spent decades being useful to other people. Your enjoyment gets organized around them, around what you could do for them, what they appreciated, what fit in the margins of a 12-hour day. You stop asking what you want because the answer has to be practical. It has to fit. Eventually, you forget you were ever asking, and it begs the deeper question. Who am I without my competence identity? Am I my career? I sat there in Paris and I genuinely did not know the answer. Day 4, something shifted. Before the trip, I booked a photo shoot, one of those sessions with a photographer in the city, the kind of thing I might normally have talked myself out of as too indulgent, too self-focused, not exactly a justifiable line item. But I'd done it in some act of advanced self-advocacy, maybe, hopefully. And on the morning of the fourth day, I showed up. The photographer was warm and skilled and not remotely interested in making me look like a stock photo. She moved me through the light, took her shots, and after a few frames, she turned the camera around and showed me the viewfinder. I kind of froze because there I was, not holding a radio, not standing in front of a whiteboard, not walking a hallway with somewhere urgent to be, not being the principal, not being anyone's mother or anyone's boss or anyone's person in charge. Just there, in the light, in Paris, with nowhere to be and nothing to prove. What I saw was a woman in her early 60s with a quiet confidence, a soft presence. She wasn't performing anything. She wasn't bracing for the next thing that was going to need handling. She was simply being, and it was written all over her face in the best possible way. I almost didn't recognize her. That's the part I keep returning to. Not that I looked good, though I absolutely did. Thank you very much. It was that I almost didn't recognize myself because I had grown so accustomed to seeing myself through the lens of what I was doing. And here I was, doing nothing in particular, and I was still someone. I was still her, still fully and completely me. That was the beginning of coming back. Here is what I think happens to a lot of us, and I'm speaking specifically to the women watching this who are somewhere in their late 50s or early 60s who have been excellent at something for a very long time. We learned early that competence was safe. It was valued. It got us through doors that didn't necessarily open easily. It got us promoted, respected, taken seriously in rooms that didn't always want to take us seriously in the first place. We held on to competence because it worked. It was the most reliable thing we had. And then one day, competence became the whole story we told about ourselves. The identity cost shows up in quiet ways. It shows up when you try to rest and feel inexplicably guilty, like you've left something undone even when you haven't. It shows up when you retire or step back and genuinely don't know what to do with your hands. It shows up when someone asks what you've been into lately and you answer with something about work and you don't even notice you did it. It shows up when you go to Paris, one of the great cities of the world, and spend 3 days managing yourself instead of meeting yourself. I want to be very clear about something. Setting down competence as identity is not the same as becoming less capable. You don't lose what you know. You don't lose what you're good at. What you're setting down is the idea, the deeply held, often unconscious idea, that somehow your value depends on being useful right now in this moment to whoever is in the room. That idea has cost us something. I can't tell you exactly what it's cost you, but I know what it cost me. Years of not knowing what I actually wanted, what I actually enjoyed, who I actually was when no one was asking anything of me and there was no role to fill and no problem to solve. I am retiring in June. And I have decided that the most interesting project I will take on in this next chapter is not a new job, not a new title, not a new way to perform competence for a fresh audience. It is the much stranger, much more uncomfortable, much more necessary project of finding out who I am when I am simply being. Like in that viewfinder, like in that Paris light. I got a glimpse of her in Paris, and I liked what I saw. If this is landing anywhere for you, if you've ever felt that particular disorientation of not knowing who you are outside the thing you do, I want to leave you with something to sit with. Not a homework assignment. I'm almost retired. No more homework. Just a question. When was the last time you were somewhere doing nothing in particular with no role to perform and no one to manage and you felt fully and quietly like yourself. If you had to think about it for longer than you expected, that might be worth paying attention to. I'm Sara Jane. This is the Midlife Intelligencer, where we talk about all the things they don't warn you about in your early 50s and 60s, and some of the ones they really should have. Thanks for joining me today. It means a lot. I'll see you in the next one.